The Washington Post with an article this morning about the release of the Parkland, Florida shooter videos. And, the only thing worth mentioning in this, it's funny, not funny, ha-ha, funny, strange, and discouraging. You read this article, and they state several times, or ask several times, depending on how you look at it. His guilt has not been questioned. He's confessed. His attorneys readily admit he was a gunman. It's a troubled young man, disturbing pattern and behavior. But what motivated him to open fire remains unanswered. Then they go on with the article about the videos, in which he says specifically why he wanted to do this. So he'd become famous, so people would know who he was, to take out revenge on his on the world. And then the victims weigh in and say, I tortured myself watching this video. Don't do it. Here's how a great way to stop school shootings is never mention the shooter's name or give them notoriety. He discussed how the world will know who he is. He wanted this. And then another victim says he deserves no attention. Here's who does. And then lists the names of the victims, the victims who were killed. And again, the article says, some people have advocated limited news coverage of the shooter to prevent them achieving the notoriety they desire. And yet the article still says, well, his motivation remains unanswered. How can that be? How thoroughly can you answer something? Okay. All right.
That's like the joke we had earlier. If you don't know what introspection is, you need to take a long look at yourself.
Right.
It's like that joke. You're discussing with lots of people, including the victims, on how...
And the shooter.
Wow.
And he answers it categorically. The fact that it's not the answer they want, I think, is the disconnect here, isn't it?
Boy, that's an interesting
Is
idea.
cable news going to come out with the headline, breaking news, all these shooters want to be on cable news? Are you ever going to see that headline?
Our coverage is more likely the culprit than the existence of guns. Breaking news. Yeah, you're probably not going to see that.
It's not bullying. It's this headline.
Ugh.
I found that an astonishing
but if they were
lack
that
of insider.
If they were that self-aware, they wouldn't publish the story that points the finger at them, and then they're the only ones who's not connecting the dot.
Yeah.
Like if they were trying to hide that.
You're blowing my mind.
It's such an important thing.
Yeah.
I'm past the enjoying the irony of it or criticizing them. Just how do we get this to stop?
Right.
And again, I've said this for a couple of presidents in a row now. I want the president of the United States to go on TV and say, look, I'm not trying to infringe on the First Amendment, et cetera, but the coverage in the media of these shootings is creating more of them. All the mental health experts agree.
Well,
so here's what I think we should do.
I would like to see, and Trump would never go for this, but I'd like to see Trump side by side with Barack Obama delivering that message, going back and forth on the teleprompter. I would really like to see that. The videos, which I have not watched, but I've read transcripts of, are incredibly instructive. I mean, it just makes the case. This guy says, my name is blank, he says his name, and I'm going to be the next school shooter of 2018. To Malcolm Gladwell and other thinkers' piece about the contagion. It's gone from an unthinkable idea to an idea people think about. The crowd that had to see it done once to trigger them are obviously triggered, no pun intended. The crowd that needed to see it now done 10, 15 times. Now they're thinking, wow, that's a thing. It's a thing I could do. Wait a minute. I'm angry. I want to be famous. Wow. And he spells it out in the video.
Yeah, and unfortunately, so much of the damage has already been done and can only be undone with time. But we could stop.
Right.
We need the end point for glorifying these people so that we can get past this generation that grew up with it.
Right. We need that transitional moment.
Because there was a good article. We talked about this last week, but read the article in, I think, the New York Times over the weekend about Columbine being the ground zero for all this, and almost every shooter in some way references or emulates the Columbine doofuses. Either dresses like them or mentions their names in their Facebook page or whatever. and this latest scumbag did also. And
I know it's chilling.
That one really. This was before. This is really before we knew what we were doing. But that one, they really went out of their way to glorify those two dudes and make them look like they were Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kids. I mean,
/ victims. Remember, they were bullied.
Right.
They were part of that outcast group, all of which was fictional.
And even if it wasn't, sorry, that doesn't work. You don't get to shoot your classmates.
Well, right. Exactly. That message is horrific.
And that's never included.
Right.
How about that? Just start there. When you're doing a story, you're supposed to present both sides or all the sides that exist at all. If you're going to say he complained about bullying, you got to throw into the story. Of course, bullying doesn't warrant killing people.
Nor being jilted by a girl.
Well, that's the worst example.
Or whatever.
Throwing that out there as if that makes sense. Oh, okay, well, he got his heart broken in high school because that never happens to anybody.
Yeah, that makes him special, and then his pain is so unique, he gets to murder people, is the unspoken message delivered by the simpletons of the media every time this happens. And we've got to reach that transitional point where you just, as a people, we're all made aware of, that's how it works. That's what these kids are thinking. It seems obvious to us now because we've been talking about it so much, but I'm sure there's still people for whom the light bulb hasn't gone off or gone on, I guess. Ding. That's what's happening here. This is so chilling. This is a stupid teenage fad. That's what this is. It's a fad.